A group of Republican lawmakers want new investigations of the FBI's treatment of the Hillary Clinton email scandal. They also want a closer look at the Uranium One case and how the Justice Department handled the early days of the Russia probe. Joining us now from Capitol Hill are Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz and Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. Congressman Gaetz, you all were on the floor today. What are you calling for?
Well, we have seen a double standard of bias that benefits Hillary Clinton and works against President Trump. Hillary Clinton was essentially investigated by her own fan club, and we're finding out more and more every day, Brett, that Bob Mueller's team was essentially selected when he was fishing in the Never Trump aquarium. Time and again, it's hard to win when you've got the other team, when you've got the referees wearing the jersey of the other team, and here when you've got Mr. Orr's wife, Nellie Orr, actually getting paid by the Fusion GPS company that put together this fake dossier, it really calls into question the integrity of the investigation.
Congressman Jordan, are you calling for a special counsel to investigate the special counsel?
Yep. Well, we called for a second special counsel, Brett, 4.5 months ago. It needs to happen. With each day, as we learn more and more, it just reinforces this idea that you had the Comey FBI and the Obama Justice Department coordinating with the Clinton campaign to go after President Trump. I mean, when you think about what we learned in the last several weeks, the dossier paid for by the Clinton campaign, the Democrat National Committee, who then paid the law firm, who then paid Fusion GPS, who paid Christopher Steele, who paid Russians to put together this fake dossier that we believe was the basis for securing warrants at the FISA court to spy on Americans. That all took place. That's what we got to find out about. That's what we got to get answers to. That's why we called for a second special counsel.
You know, I asked your colleague, Trey Gowdy, the head of the Oversight Committee, about the call for a special counsel on these grounds. Here's what he said to me.
These are Trump people. So special counsel just means we either don't think you can do your job, and the women and men that we pay millions of dollars to run the DOJ, so we're going to find somebody who's not part of DOJ and give them a bunch of FBI agents. And oh, by the way, the FBI's got some issues right now. Special counsel is not a panacea. What we need is a serious investigation. Who does it is immaterial to me.
Yeah,
Congressman Gaetz.
Well, look, I mean, I think that Trey Gowdy's got a lot of affection for the Department of Justice and the FBI. Our problem is that the senior officials at those agencies, people who are right below the director and the attorney general, are actually being implicated for bias. I mean, how can we allow the Department of Justice to conduct this investigation when the guy who was the head of counterintelligence had his wife moonlighting for the Fusion GPS company that was digging up fake dirt on the president to discredit him both before and after the election? We have to have clean eyes. We have to have an outcome we can rely on, and currently with the FBI and the Department of Justice, there's far too much bias, far too much evidence of coordination with President Trump's enemies, and we can't trust them.
Is this a problem for Attorney General Sessions, Congressman Jordan? Is he at fault here?
He doesn't know where his recusal starts and stops. That was evident from Matt's questioning 4 weeks ago when he sat in front of the committee. No one likes special counsels, but when the Attorney General doesn't know where his recusal begins and ends, and Robert Mueller is inherently compromised on the Uranium One issue, and the number four, one of the top guys at the Justice Department, Bruce Orr, is meeting with Glenn Simpson and Christopher Steele, the guy who wrote and paid for the dossier, and oh, by the way, his wife is employed by him. You don't think there's a conflict there? We don't like special counsels either, but there is no other way to get to the truth for the American people. That's why we called for it 4.5 months ago, and it needs to happen.
When you hear Congressman Schiff, who's ranking member of the House Intel Committee, say there may not be specific evidence of collusion, but there's circumstantial evidence, and he lays out how he laid it out this weekend, what do you say to that?
I would say that there's a heck of a lot of evidence of collusion between the Democrats and Russia. Just like Mr. Jordan just said, you've got circumstances where the very wife of a senior official at the Department of Justice was getting paid by the people who were getting paid by the Democratic Party to go and pay Russians to tell lies about the president. That is de facto collusion, Brett. So I think there's a heck of a lot more circumstantial evidence. There's real evidence. The question is whether or not this entire narrative about President Trump and Russia was made up to cover up the collusion between Democrats and Russia, and that's what the evidence seems to be pointing to more and more, and it's why we're asking the questions. Look, we don't have all the answers yet. That's one of the reasons why we're bringing in Mr. Rosenstein tomorrow to the Judiciary Committee, and we hope he'll actually give us answers, because the Attorney General and the FBI Director, they largely didn't give us answers. They don't think the American people deserve to know whether their taxpayer money was used to go and discredit the sitting president of the United States. I think the American people do deserve to know, and that's why we're pressing on with our investigation.
Congressman Jordan?
Well, I mean, look, Matt's exactly right. Jeff Sessions wouldn't answer our questions. Christopher Wray wouldn't answer our questions. They won't give us the documents. Hopefully, Mr. Rosenstein will be better tomorrow. We'll see. But we're going to press him just as hard as we did the former witnesses in front of the Judiciary. Remember, this is the Judiciary Committee, the committee with primary responsibility, oversight responsibility of the Justice Department, and they won't give us the information we need. They won't answer the questions when they come. So if that's the case, I don't know any other remedy logically that you can get to than a second special counsel.
There are some conservatives in talk radio and other places who are saying that all of the calls for President Trump to step down for past sexual misconduct allegations are coming because this Russia probe is not going where they think it's going to go. Do you believe that? And what do you think of today's interchange with Senator Gillibrand?
Well, I think that the left has just gone crazy over the fact that Donald Trump is the duly elected president of the United States, and they will do absolutely anything to try to distract us from the important work we're doing to improve quality of life for the American people, to improve our economy, our regulatory environment. And so we've got to make sure that the president's time in office is not clouded by these fake allegations that have been ginned up by people who bring a tremendous amount of bias against him. I mean, Brett, don't forget, Andrew Weissman, the #2 guy in the Mueller probe, was at Hillary Clinton's victory party. He was praising Sally Yates when she directly defied an order from the president. And I just think you're going to continue to hear from the left all of these different excuses and circumstances why Donald Trump shouldn't be president. The reality is he is our president, and we should be working together to improve life for the Americans that we serve.
Congressman Gates and Jordan, we appreciate your time. We promise you we're going to cover all elements of these investigations. Thanks a lot.
There is new fallout this evening from Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. In recent days, we have reported on a series of troubling reports involving members of Mueller's team who are clearly not fans of the president, bringing into question whether or not they're impartial enough to be on this investigation. So now a top member of the president's legal team says that what's needed in his mind is a second special counsel to keep an eye on, to oversee the investigators. Jay Sekulow told Axios, quote, "The Department of Justice and FBI cannot ignore the multiple problems that have been created by these obvious conflicts of interest. These new revelations require the appointment of a special counsel to investigate," he writes. Jonathan Turley is constitutional law expert and George Washington University law professor and good friend of the program. Jonathan, good to see you tonight. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Martha.
So what do you think about that? Should he do that?
Well, I totally agree with the need for a serious investigation. I find the allegations involving the dossier and the fusion effort to be deeply troubling. I mean, there are false statements that have been made. There's serious conflicts of interest. Having said that, I would not recommend another special counsel. This is the type of thing that Congress can and should investigate. They have jurisdiction over the Justice Department. This is a core concern of whether the Justice Department acted through politically motivated means or purposes. Now, that can change depending on new disclosures. It could also change if the Justice Department continues to refuse to give information to Congress. I've said for years that these committees need to enforce their contempt authority and to start holding these officials guilty of contempt.
Yeah, I mean, it's really unbelievable. You kind of feel bad for members on these committees on the Hill because, you know, ever since Benghazi, they request documents. They nicely ask for them. They send things. Now they're doing it here. They have requested many documents with regard to the dossier, whether or not the dossier was used as a precursor or to lay the groundwork for the investigation. They can't seem to get anywhere with getting answers from the FBI on any of that. And then you look at, you know, the different characters that are playing roles in this investigation and the myriad, starting with Bob Mueller and his relationship with James Comey and on down, Andrew Weissman. It starts to look like a team of people who, you know, are obviously very smart, obviously have, you know, wonderful degrees. They're attorneys of great repute. However, their own actions make it appear that they cannot be impartial in this case.
Well, I think that the problem we're seeing emerge is that the conflicts are becoming more the rule than the exception in these investigations. I have no problem with spending millions of dollars, spending copious amounts of time on these investigations. The one thing I don't want is at the end for there to be lingering doubts as to whether any of this matters because of conflicts of interest. And so I think we seriously have to look at that. The Justice Department seriously has to look at it. Right now, the integrity of the Justice Department is at stake, and they're not doing much to correct it.
But who can do that? I guess that's the question, because if the House committees who have the jurisdiction, as you point out, can't get the information that they want, it's no wonder, that Jay Sekulow said maybe we need somebody on the outside.
Well, that may, in fact, be the only outcome unless they force this issue. I've testified before that Congress needs to enforce contempt authority. And I have to say, to the credit of the Republicans in the House, they are thinking of holding officials in a Republican administration in contempt. That would be the first time in modern times to have a party holding its own administration to account. That would be a good development, given the rather checkered history of contempt of agencies in dealing with Congress.
Great point. Jonathan Turley, thank you, as always. Good to see you tonight.
Thanks, Martha.